I thought we had a great series of discussions, keynotes, panelists. Probably one of the most interesting guys in our industry is Michael Pachter, Wedbush analyst.
It's great to have Michael kind of start things off, right? He's a little bit irreverent, a little bit of a lone ranger, right? He does a genuine take though on the industry. He's not shy to give his opinions on things. And one of his opinions was based on the kind of track the industry's going on with social gaming, mobile gaming, traditional core gaming, as it relates to Vegas.
The reason I draw this analogy is that when Las Vegas was just table games, that really is like the games industry just being consoles. And MMOs came up in the 90s, got pretty big in the 90s and very big obviously with World of Warcraft. And that's about the same time Vegas started putting in poker rooms. Nobody ever said that the poker room was going to kill table games. Nobody ever suggested that. Then they added slots, and it's like, that's a different audience. Very few Texas Hold'em players who play in tournaments play penny slots. They do when they're getting a lap dance, but other than that, they don't. But very few people do all three. They tend to skew toward slots, or they skew toward poker, or they're just dead center in the middle. And I think that's the same with games.
But it's just a different way to play. It's a different type of consumer, and in a sense, it's good for the whole industry because if you're able to get all four quadrants of people playing video games in one way or another, right? Then you don't have the mom who's like, oh, video games are bad for you, Junior, don't play. At least she's playing some type of video game, so she's in support in some way of that method of entertainment. So the whole family can just play on whatever channels and whatever methods and whatever products they want to interact with.
Yeah, he spoke a lot about the industry in general and the business of games and the emergence of social gaming. Then the panels went more deep into the marketing and how that's changing, especially with the emergence and the tool set we now have with social media, Facebook and Twitters and YouTube brand channels. And we had a great panel, I thought, with one of the gentlemen from Hootsuite and our own Rebecca Markarian talking about that now we have all of these tools, but yet we can then put ROI to them. So there was a real interesting discussion around the analytics that can be brought to bear in the social space.
The social aspect that really the summit was built on, right, to the setup earlier around relationship, right? Let's start building desire, let's get to know the audience. So with Hootsuite and a lot of other partners we work with, the idea of being able to operate at the speed of conversation with our clients is really powerful.
People have definitely evolved as consumers from being able to impact them with advertising, but now the brand has to become smarter. They've got to find different ways to engage with your consumer because they've become conditioned to social, right? They've got peers out there that are using social to ultimately influence their social circles, if you will, and their friends and followers. So I think it's interesting, definitely, to see how the consumer has changed.
Rebecca, I remember, brought up an example with Battlefield and how when the Battlefield game dropped, there was some early kind of folks that are in the servers trying to give people a bad time, and people were complaining about that on the Facebook page, and so basically they were able to rally and provide a forum for, tell us what servers are great.
So if someone comes to your page and they say, your game's shit, well, if you say, well, I appreciate that you feel that way, but could you give us some constructive feedback? You've all of a sudden taken power away. You've affected change. You've changed the tone of a conversation. And being in there right when they make that comment, and it can't be 30 minutes later because they're gone. And yeah, they might come back and look, but their anger has already been told to 30 people, and now they're over it. So it's got to be an immediate reaction.
I was really surprised at how progressive a client like EA who was speaking on the panel is with social and how they treat it. It's not a secondary. It's not leading up to launch. Let's figure out this social thing. It's a primary aspect of their marketing arsenal. And prior to that, EA's perception may not have been the case if the social tool sets weren't available to them.
Rebecca and Dan both talked a lot about the amount of effort it takes to do this sort of work. It's not one community manager. It's not one person on your team doing this anymore. That's sort of the way it used to be. Hey, I'm the guy who's going to be, having conversations on Facebook. This takes efforts. Rebecca and Dan both have large teams, and it's enough to put it into your marketing mix. That's where you're actually making an impact and talking to your consumer.